Cordial greetings, tutor and classmates. Today we are gathered to discuss a topic that sparks considerable debate, perish the thought of mandatory military service. First and foremost, I would like to express my opinion against mandatory military service. I firmly believe that compulsory enlistment is not as beneficial as voluntary service. Let me explain why. First, personal freedom and choice. Mandatory military service limits freedom. When young individuals are forced to serve in the army, they are deprived of the choice of pursue their own dreams. Imagine someone who had wanted to study medicine but was instead of forced to join in the army. This individual aspiration would be put on hold or perhaps even abandoned because of mandatory military service. Everyone should have the freedom to choose their path in the life, and compulsory military service undermines this freedom. Let's consider an example. If a young person wanted to become a teacher but had to spend years in the army, first, their career plans would be delayed. This delay might make them less motivated to pursue their dream later. It's not as easy as it sounds to shift from military life to civilian life, especially if it's something you never wanted in the first place. Moreover, in democratic societies, freedom of choice of one of the most cherished values. Forcing people into military service goes against this principle. Second, professionalism in the military. Let's consider a volunteer army is usually more professionally and dedicated than a conscript one. Volunteers join the army because they want to, not because they must. This desire often leads to a greater dedication and professionalism. In contrast, those who are forced in the service, it might have the same level of the commitment. A motivated volunteer can be as effective as two conscripts. In the past, many armies had relied on conscription, but over time they have moved toward professional. This change happens because it was discovered that volunteers perform better. They took pride in their work, which improved the overall effectiveness of the military service. Now, forcing people in the army can result in having individuals who are not as dedicated, which can lead to the less effective military force. Consider the military training itself. Volunteers know they should this path are likely to engage full in absorb the training better. Conscripts, on the other hand, might just go through the motions because they are not genuinely interested. This lack of genuine interest can affect the overall results and efficiency of military. Third, economic impact. Mandatory military service can have a negative impact on the economy. Young people who could have contribute to the economy through various professionals are instead of compelled to serve in the military. This diversion of human resources can slow down economic growth. For example, countries with mandatory service might have fewer young entrepreneurs starting business compared to those without such a requirements. Consider a young engineer who had just graduated from the university. If they are required to the service in the military forces, perhaps for 2 years, they will be more behind their peers who went straight in the workplace. This delay can affect their career progression and earning potential. Over this time can have a significant impact on the economy. Additionally, during the service conscripts are not productive as they will be in the chosen professions, which means that their potential contribution to the innovation and development are lost during this period. Fourth, the psychology effects. Servants in the army can be extremely challenging, both physically and mentally. Forcing individuals into such a demanding environment can lead to significant psychological stress trauma. Those who are not mentally prepared for suited for military life may suffer long-term consequences. Studies have shown that mandatory service can lead to higher rates of PTSD among conscripts. Military environment is not as comfortable as civilian life. It is very strict and demanding for some people. This can be very difficult to handle. This may develop anxiety, depression, or other mental health issues. These issues can continue long after the military service has ended. We should cause such a harm to the people to forcing them in the situation they are not prepared for. For instance, I think a young person who has never been away from home and is suddenly thrust in the highly rigid and stressed military environment. This abrupt change can be very traumatic. The mental health supports provided by the military may not be enough to counter the stress and the trauma experiencing such as individuals. Therefore, the psychology cost of mandatory military service can be very high. Fifth, alternatives of mandatory service. I consider that there are many other ways to service one's country that do not involve mandatory military service. Some community service programs, for example, can still a sense of civic duty and contribute positively to society. Volunteer in local organizations can be just impactful as is no more than service in the military. Also, historical perspective and lesson learned. Looking back at historical, many countries have had periods of mandatory military service. However, as these countries have developed, most have moved away from conscription. The shift happens because it was recognized that professional volunteer army is more effective and efficient. Thank you very much for your attention. See you next time.